everybody, and welcome again to a very special episode of the Real Collective Podcast, the show where life lessons are learned and quickly forgotten. My name is Brendan McKeigan. With me, as always, is Sean Tassay. I never know what I'm going to say at the intro, so I just start talking, and sometimes that's what happens. Sean, how are you?
I forgot. I had a
Great.
life
If
lesson.
you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so you can hear more witty comments from Sean and more of his forgetful things. You can download us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. Sean, now that you've had some more time, how are you doing?
You know what? Let me tell you about the weather.
Oh, God.
Yeah, right.
That's it for today.
Till next time. Give it real. Yeah, man, I'm good. I feel like we're it's a heat wave. I always equate how I feel with the weather. And it's sticky out there. There's some real estate transactions that are going on, and to get them to stick is hard. And it's hot and it's tired, right? People are like, oh, give me that afternoon siesta. I had a really neat experience last week where I went by my old summer camp that I went to like every summer for, I don't know, 10, 12 years. And it was weird, man. It was weird walking through there. It did something to me. Bunch of different experiences in walking to those different spaces. My partner often talks about following in the footsteps of your ghost. Use that a lot to talk about like running. If we're running on the canal, you're like, oh, I'm chasing my old self. And it really felt like that. Like I walked into these different spaces and I had these really cool different experiences. So out in Perth, looking at a property with a client, and this was like 3 minutes away from that camp, and so I went there, and it was eerie, post-apocalyptic. Like I expected it to be full of people who were, training to be camp counselors, and there was one person there fixing like some leaky pipes. It was just weird vibe altogether.
And surrounded by clickers from Last of Us.
Yeah. Just mushrooms all over.
That's why no one comes here anymore.
Yeah, and that big guy.
Yeah.
Anyways, no, man, I'm good. I'm feeling good, feeling happy. In a couple weeks, I'm gonna be up at the cottage, so that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that. How about you?
Nice. How about me? My kids have actually been in school this week. Daycare, so that's nice. It's a good little win. We have soccer tonight. I'm the coach of a bunch of 4-year-olds, and now some of them at the daycare are calling me coach when I show up.
Nice.
It's the best. It's one of the best feelings in the world. It's so cool. Hi, coach. I'm like, oh, it's the best.
That's a pretty good nickname,
right?
Yeah. How do you coach 4-year-olds to play soccer?
So it's not even in this league because it's 4 and under. It's Timbits, and they don't have like games like versus another team. So everything is about learning the basics. So I'm trying to do like fun little games with them. I put up cones that are different colors in like different sections of the field, and I play a game called Paw Patrol, where they take their ball and I'll say Marshall, and I'll point to all the red cones. So they all run with their ball to the red cones, and then I'll say Rubble, and they all run to the yellow cones, and we do something like that. What time is it, Mr. Wolf is very popular. They like that one. I found another game. It's called Kick the Coach. It's not what it sounds like, but the kids have to take their ball and chase me using their feet, obviously. And if they kick the ball at me, and I gotta let them hit me. If they hit me with the ball, they yell out an animal, and I have to act like that animal until somebody else hits me with the ball.
Oh, cool.
So last week I was like a giraffe and a bear and dinosaurs and a T-Rex, like a whole bunch of different things, right? Like monkey, and they loved it. They thought it was hilarious.
Fun game.
Yeah. So just a bunch of like games like that. It's an hour, but very kind of lax. Trying to get it a little more structured for them so that they have a better baseline going in. So I'm trying to do like actual passing and like teach them to pass with the inside of the foot. All that kind of fun stuff, but it's fun. The parents have been very helpful, so that's kind of nice too, and it's a good time. But enough about soccer with 4-year-olds. I could go on about it for the whole podcast. We had some requests from a lot of people have been asking us. No one has been asking us.
Well, at least
we've had some people inquire about this and what they would like to see us cover. And that's what we're doing today. And so we've
Pull,
had people that are like, yeah, we're gonna pull back the curtain. Yes, we need to say those words. We're, we're going to explain what happens with the commission that's paid out. What do we make as realtors? Where does the money go? Because everyone thinks we're making money hand over fist.
that's right. Yeah, you're all rich driving your white supercars.
Your white SUVs.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And your BMWs.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway.
And your Teslas and your whatever. Yeah. So we did some math. We figured out, okay, well, if you sell a house that's worth $500,000, and commission is never certain. It's negotiable, right? There's no fixed price for commission, but on average, we typically charge 5%. So we put 5% in there just for round numbers sake, which means that you, as the seller of your house, would be paying $25,000 plus HST. That's a lot of money. And you're like, oh,
And then where does the 25,000 go? Does that all go to the listing agent? No, it doesn't. It's usually split in half. It's 2.5% to each side. So that's $12,500 to each side.
Yeah.
And you might think that's where it ends.
That's still,
it doesn't. There's still a long way to go.
Keep going, Brennan. Keep going.
Oh God. Okay. So we're gonna break down the whole cost, and then we'll tell you what we did to earn that money. So let's say we have 12,500 each, and from that, the government will usually take half.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they'll take $3,500.
Well, yeah. So and the $3,500 is going to be after expenses, right? So the expenses first, you'd have to take what the brokerage is going to take, right? They typically take it works out to a quarter for most people. It's not an exact number, and sometimes there's a cap to what the brokerage takes. But if you just say that the brokerage takes a quarter of each transaction, that comes down to 12,500 each, right? So 12,500, a quarter of that's 3,125 that the brokerage is going to take, and there's a bunch of expenses that the listing agent is going to pay for over and above, right? And let's just say, for example, it's $2,000 between staging and photos. I mean, if you really want to break it down, you can get into it. Staging, photos, cleaning, all those potential expenses, drone shots, eye guide, videographer. That doesn't include the cost of any like administrative expenses or anything like that, but just the cost for $500 for photos, $500 for a staging consultation, $500 for a cleaner. Sometimes it's more. $500 for the eye guide, right? And then your
signage, proper signage.
Right. Yeah, proper installed signage. I think it's the signs themselves. I think one sign one time is probably, I don't know, it's like maybe 50 or $100, and then the installation of that sign is another 200, right? At all of that adds up. I mean, it sounds small when you're talking about 12,500, but it adds up. So just for round numbers sake, $2,000 worth of expenses to prep the home. That means that after the brokerage takes their 3,125 and the agent pays the $2,000 in hopes that they'll get that back through the sale of the home. Of course, they don't get that money back unless the house sells, right? The house doesn't sell, the expenses are still paid, right? So there's a risk there on the listing agent side. And then the government takes money. They'll take 50% of your after your after expenses, your net income. So you've got your gross income, which is your 12,500, and of course there is HST when you're a seller to pay, and that just flows right through, right? That goes right back to the government. So from that 12,500, the brokerage is taking 3,125. The government's taking about 3,500 when you get down to that $7,000 of net income, and then the cost is about 2,000. Right, so you wind up as the listing agent after expenses with your total net income being about 3,875, or just about $4,000 after tax as the listing agent to sell a house. And of course, the seller's like, man, I just paid you $25,000, and the reality is what the agent winds up with in their pocket is less than a fifth of that.
Yep.
It's mind blowing for a lot of people. And then you can sort of answer the same question for the buyer agent on the buyer agent side. I'll let you do that. I'll let you run through that and what the buyer agent does, right? There's so much work that the buyer agent does. Maybe we get into that in the second half, like what the listing agent and the buyer agent actually do. What you should expect from full service agency, right?
Sure, sure. We can break it down even further. If you're a realtor that happens to be on a team, you've got 12,500. That's your 2.5% that's come out. If you're on a team, a lot of times, well, not, let's just say you're 50-50 split with your team. So immediately you're down to $6,250, $6,250.
Yep.
Out of that, 25% goes to Remax. So that's another $1,500 or so. So you're down to $4,687. And then less 30% in taxes, you're down another $1,400. And that leaves you, out of that 12,500, if you're on a team, to about $3,281. So just over $3,000.
I always
And I didn't even put like expenses in there. If you're driving around and helping them buy or whatever it happens to be, if this is, let's just say this is your listing, then usually that other 6,250 that you split with the team will go to cover that stuff that we just talked about, like the expenses to prep the home and whatnot. And then that's what you're left with. That's yours. $3,281 out of $12,500. Why do we do this? What? What? Oh, God. Yeah. I have driven people to see 30-something homes. That's like $20 a house.
You know what? Sometimes, depending on, again, and sad to say, but depending on price point, sometimes you don't make your money back, right? It's not just driving them and the gas that you pay in car to car. It's the time that you spend doing it, right? And you spend all of this time, and you're like, oh, what am I getting paid per hour? And you have to minus your expenses, and it's a lot. I mean, the time that you spend, when you're an agent, you're doing so much work. We'll get into the work that the full service agent does in the second half, because I think there's a lot of the times a consumer looks at this and they say 5%, I don't want to pay 5%. What, that's so much money. And I think part of the reason to break it down like this is to say, like, well, the reason we have to charge 5% is because what we get at the end is such a small amount of money, and that covers the costs that go along with, obviously staging the house and all of the work that goes into it, right? And the relationship building and the training that we have to do to make sure that we're negotiating well for our clients. And if we were to cut the commission or reduce the rate, the brokerage still wants to be paid, the government still wants to be paid. Are we going to cut it from the marketing budget, or are we going to cut it from our own pockets? And I think the problem is, a lot of the times, these realtors who are reducing the rates, they're not going to take the money out of their own pocket, which means that they're going to take it from the marketing budget. And if they're taking it from the marketing budget, then your home might not be shown in its best light, and might not be negotiated in its best light, because that realtor might not have taken that extra $200 from that transaction to go and learn how to be a great real estate negotiator, right?
Not only that, but like, if you're taking a discount on that stuff, a lot of times the stager is not involved. There's no staging consult. And we've talked about it several times that staged homes make more money. So at the end of the day, if it's a heavily discounted thing by some realtors just trying to snag a listing, you could end up netting much less than you would by using a full service agency. Yeah. So how much money you as the seller take home after it's sold, that should be your first priority.
Well, the philosophy that sort of governs that is, during the pandemic, we found that we were doing more work. And so we started charging more. And we were providing a level of service to our clients that was, the results that we were having were far exceeding, they continue to far exceed the average agent in the market right now. So, we can make the excuse that, yeah, okay, we can get away with charging more simply because the results speak for themselves, right? But I think that people these days, people don't have more to give, really. I think a lot of people who are in tough positions, and I think putting a 6% on it is not great. We've figured out a way to streamline it and to continue to offer that service that we were offering, that when we were charging 6%, but only to be able to get down and charge 5. So I think that benefits our clients a lot. But you can see, right, when you do the math of it, what the actual agent nets is nowhere near the amount of money that's being paid. I always look at it as, hey, it's about 1%. So, if you buy a $500,000 house and I'm your buyer agent, before I pay taxes to the government on it, right, it's about 1%, give or take.
Yeah, that's probably pretty accurate, I think.
So you buy a $500,000 house, I'm going to get about $5,000, and from that $5,000, I've got to pay the government.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a $1 million listing selling sunset thing. And you know what? We use the example of 500,000. You can use $1 million example here, and the math still equates, right? It's still like, okay, well, instead of 5,000, it's
still the same amount,
right? So, and again, people are like, oh, $1 million, I'm paying $50,000, right? Because the sellers are always seeing what they're paying both sides.
Which that makes sense, because at the seller, if I'm selling a house, I kind of don't care where it's going. If you think about it from a seller perspective, you're just like, I'm paying out $50,000. This is a lot. I better get a lot back for that.
Right.
And that, like, it better make a difference. And I think we'll cover that in the second half of how we do make that difference.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? There might be somebody who's willing to do it for, instead of on $1 million house, and instead of doing it for $50,000, maybe they're doing it for, $35,000.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's sort of the oh, okay, well, what's the difference here? What are you getting for that extra 15,000, or what are you not getting? So yeah, we'll cover it in the second half. That's a good call.
For sure. All right. So let's take a quick break. I hope that's shed some light on thing. And I don't want this to come off as like, look at what's taken from us. But I just hope it's more of like, yeah, there it is. See?
Yeah.
It's still good. There's still a lot of the freedom there, I guess, as a realtor. There's still freedom. You're working 24/7. But I just hope it lets some people see that, like, hey, okay, so there is a breakdown here. So especially on the buyer side, I think that's kind of helpful of like seeing, because like then you're not like, well, they're getting paid $12,000 anyway. It's like, well, we're not though. And if you're working with somebody for 6 months to a year, that's not that you're hopefully not working with just one client over a year, but this will shed some light on it.
The take home for me here is that to be a successful realtor, you need to have a good, what they call a good book of business. You need to have enough clients that you're helping out, and you're still offering that same high level of service to them, that you have enough income to be able to feed your family.
For sure. There you go. All right, so we'll take a quick break, check out this video, and we'll be right back on the Real Collective podcast.
This episode of the Real Collective podcast is brought to you by Real Collective. Real Collective brings together best-in-class real estate agents and collective experts in the field to deliver the best possible service to our clients. We govern ourselves with honesty, open-mindedness, and compassion. With diverse skill sets, our agents are able to better serve a wide array of clients, including first-time buyers, first-time sellers, transferees, estate sales, investors, and rural, vacation, and luxury properties. Authenticity and transparency are pillars of our process, which allows us to put our clients at the center of everything we do. Our years of experience and knowledge allow us to deliver prestigious service and optimal results. If you are interested in buying or selling your home, contact us today at realcollective.ca.
Welcome back to the second half, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. Please, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and share the channel. Maybe hit that little notification bell so you know when a new episode or one of our videos comes up. That would be great. And you can also find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. First half, we pulled back the curtain, talking about costs and expenses and what our take home is. If you didn't watch it, go back. Be a weird way to start this podcast by like fast forwarding through the middle to see what happened. Second half, we're going to dissect what we do as a full service agency to earn that commission.
Right. Yeah. What do you get? So that's right. So we sort of ended talking about the difference if you're selling a $1 million house between paying somebody that full 5% rate versus paying, for example, 3.5%, or even if it's 4%. For example, that's being charged, and we're starting to see that here and there throughout the marketplace. But really, I think people key in on the difference between the $50,000 versus looking at the difference of the $10,000. Or in the case of a $500,000 listing, really the difference at that point is only $5,000. Right, so you're only the difference of 1% on $500,000 is $5,000. So then the seller might think, hey, I'm saving $5,000. This is great, but the question is, what are they missing out on? And it could be the case that the listing agent is not paying half and half commission, evenly split. They might still be continuing to pay 2.5%, and the listing agent is taking the full $5,000 loss on their side instead of sharing that loss evenly, or sorry, not the loss, the reduced rate. They might take it all themselves instead of sharing it evenly with the buying agent. Now, if that's the case, that's a lot of money out of the listing agent's pocket, which means that, like you said before, it might not be a staging consultation. Maybe you as a client or a consumer have been shopping for houses and you've seen photos that are taken by the real estate agent with a camera, and you can tell because there's fingers over top at the top of the picture. Probably not charging a full 5%. Right? Yep. Where does that money, or you've seen it where they haven't had a staging consultation and someone leaves a toilet seat up, and you're like, gosh, why are you leaving the toilet seat up in your professional photos where you're putting your home forward, right? So what we do when we're helping you sell your property, we start with a full staging consultation where we go through the process and bring a stager in, and the stager says, hey, do this. They'll spend 3 hours walking through your house and telling you how to make it so that your house is as appealing as possible to as many prospective buyers as you can, right? Removing your personalized stuff. And there's other agents who also offer, professional service. I feel like we might go a little bit above and beyond. I'm almost certain that we do. We also offer professional cleaners. So and we started doing that during COVID. So whether you'd like to have that, the day before move out, or whether you'd like to have it the day before you start your showings, professional cleaners will come through your house and clean it out. Sometimes, if required, we also offer a pre-listing home inspection, right? If you've got a 3-year-old house, it probably doesn't need an inspection. But if you've got a 100-year-old house with a stone foundation, you might want to know what any issues are so that when you're doing negotiations, someone's not going to come back and say, oh, wow, hey, it's got a stone foundation. It needs this, this, and this. Well, you know what? We already knew that and we told you about it. So don't come back to us during that conditional period and ask for more back from it, right? We also offer professional videos, professional photography, drone photos, and also we started doing this during COVID as well, as like a Google Street View for the inside of your house. It's called an eye guide or a Matterport sort of tour of the inside of the house, that you can see it from a dollhouse 3D perspective. And all of that is included for the benefit of the seller. And if the property doesn't sell, we've already paid for that. Right? The listing agent has incurred all of these costs. So it's important for us to make sure that we're taking houses that we're selling, right? Otherwise, we're just wasting money. It becomes not just a not-for-profit, it becomes a for no profit, a for negative profit
yeah.
venture, which obviously isn't good, right? So, over and above all of the ways that we get your house ready to go to market, we also advertise it publicly. We create a website for you. We market it on, on YouTube and on Facebook, and we push that out to our sphere and to our people. And in addition to that, we have a bunch of professional agents who are constantly working on their skill set to increase their ability to negotiate and protect your asset. So our ratios, our list to sell price ratios, are far superior to the average list to sell price ratios across the real estate board. And you can see the numbers are there. I think we did the math on it. On average, I think we sell houses for $30,000 more than the average realtor. And the average price point we're dealing with is about $700,000. So we're talking about, what's that worth? An extra 4%, more than the average agent is selling for. And that's significant, I think.
Yeah, that kind of takes care of the commission. Almost.
Above. Yeah.
And on the buyer side of things, obviously we're not paying for staging and drone photos and stuff like that, but we are constantly paying for gas. We're driving all over the place. What else? We do our own advertising, our own websites. We have our own events, like, if we're doing community events, it comes out of that stuff. Like, those are expenses that it's not necessarily you have to pay for that each time, but if you want to be successful at it, I think there's things you got to do.
There's also work that you're doing, right? Like you're out there, it's normally a buyer agent who's hosting an open house, right? You're spending your time door knocking, trying to find the house for your buyer clients, out there, hustling and putting in time. It's not just the time you're spending with your clients, it's the time that you're spending without them doing the work for them, and that time, it might not have a cost equated to it, but it's time, and it's time that you're not doing something else, right?
Yeah, and that's it. And I mean, open house signs, you got to have enough of them to let people know that an open house is going on, like directionals. That kind of stuff all costs money. So there's stuff to pay for all over. And what do you get? Like, what's the full service from your buyer agent as a realtor? I will, if you're very interested in a home, or even if you're not, you're like, hey, I want to check this place out. Great, let's go. I'm going to look up comparables. I'm going to tell you what's sold. I'm going to tell you what I think it would sell for before we get there, and then be able to assess it while we're there. When you're making an offer, I don't even want to say start to finish. It's start until the next one. That's kind of how I want to look at it, because it's like, as soon as we meet, I'm going to make sure that you're taken care of, like for mortgage broker. I'm going to make sure you're taken care of for a home inspector. Anything that you possibly need, I'm going to make sure that you have it to take as much of the stress away of buying a home as possible. And so that includes like a lawyer, that includes finding a home inspector, a plumber, a well inspector, whatever. I take care of it so that you don't have to. I'll put you in touch. If you don't have a mortgage broker, I'll get one for you. If you don't have a lawyer, I'll get one for you. At closing time, all the paperwork is taken care of. That's all done. Your lawyers are going to take care of it. Once you move in, I'm going to make sure, or your final walkthrough, I'm going to make sure that the house is in working order as it was. So if something isn't working, like the sink is leaking or something, or an element's not working on a stove, that's taken care of. And then even afterwards, I want to make sure when you get in the house that everything's working on the day that you move in, and check in with you, give you a week to kind of settle a little bit, but make sure that like the home feels right, how it's going in there, checking in, and just seeing what else you might need. You're like, oh, you know what? We're in here right now. Do you happen to know of a painter? Because now that we got the furniture in here, we don't like it. Whatever it happens to be, painter, carpenter, something. You want to do some repairs. We got you. Whereas you get some discount ones and it's just like a burn them and turn them sort of scenario.
That's the thing is, it's so hard to quantify the value of the relationships that we've built, not just the relationships with people who are in another service, position, but also relationships with the other agents, right? Because that goes a long way. If we've got great relationships going with the other agents, and we're one of two offers, we can normally get your offer bought instead of the other one because of that relationship we've built. I had another relationship I had is with a mortgage broker at a specific brand. And so I had a client say, oh, well, hey, you know what, I can do a home equity line of credit if I just reach out to my branch. And I said, whoa, let me just link you in with a mortgage specialist and put the two of them together. And then they did their own thing. But the idea is I knew exactly who to call from that brand, that mortgage brand, that bank brand, because of the relationships that I've built over time. And I knew that they were going to get better service from that professional than by going directly to the branch and dealing with the jack of all trades. And so, you know, those relationships are sort of intangible in terms of what you get from a professional. There's some agents, unfortunately, that are working part-time. They've got a full-time job doing something else completely, and they're doing this sort of as a side hustle. Well, they're lacking those relationships. They're lacking the skill development. And as a result, you might be thinking that you're helping out your cousin or your uncle or your niece who just got into the business, but the reality is you might be leaving a bunch of money on the table, or you might be putting yourself in a really unsafe circumstance by working with an agent who isn't a full-time, full-service professional realtor, right? Someone who's just doing this evenings and weekends might not understand the most recent change that came out with regards to the regulations and how that affects you and your family when you're buying your home. You need to know that the person that you're hiring has those things in mind and that you're protected. That's all.
Yep. Yeah, and that kind of factors into you know, how many homes does the average realtor sell, and that kind of gives you a thing. What is it? 79% of realtors sell under 5 or something like that.
It's a really low number. There's a realtor Facebook group, and although there's 3,500 agents who are licensed in Ottawa, there's only about 1,000 people on that realtor Facebook group. So you know in Ottawa that there's really about 1,000 of us who are, you know, oh hey, I'm a real estate agent, and even on that list, you can look at it and say, well, there's only a couple of agents here who are doing, you know, more than 5 transactions. Yeah, it's drastic. You know, you've got it's the 80.
Yeah.
Right, 80%.
I'm paraphrasing from something that I maybe remember from years back, but yeah, it's a minute amount of working realtors.
Yeah.
You know, like working actors or working comedians.
Well, 20, like you say, 20% of the people are doing 80% of the business, right?
Yeah.
And so sure that you're putting yourself in front of one of those 20% of people who are doing it, as opposed to winding up with, you know, trying to do a solid to your cousin because they just got into the business and they really need help. Maybe they're really great. They just got into the business and they're amazing and they're awesome. You know, give them a chance and give them a break for sure, but just make sure that they're linked up with someone who has some experience, right? Whether it's their brokerage or whether it's their team or whatever it is. If you're new and you're starting in real estate, please find someone to work with, find a mentor. Don't try and do it yourself. There's just too many moving pieces, and there's too much liability, really, for our clients' sake, right? So, anyways,
yeah, lots going on there. So I feel like we did a good job covering all of the bases. Hopefully that gives you guys some insight as to what goes on with us from a transaction side on the buyer or the seller side. Maybe we missed something. Maybe there's something that you had questions about. Put it in the comments below. Let us know, or send us an email, book an appointment on Calendly, and let's talk about it. Those links are below. We'll wrap things up for now. This has been wonderful. Hope you found that too. Please, again, like, subscribe, and share the channel. YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, blah, 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 blah. This has been the Real Collective Podcast. I'm Brendan McKeigan. This is Sean Tassay. Until the next one, keep it real.
Collective.